Big Bang Theory Season 6 episode review video. Before I get into that, though, pretty important, if you aren't caught up to the point where I am in rewatching or watching The Big Bang Theory, or you're just not entirely sure, then you definitely need to take the initiative and pay attention to the episode's title, which of course I'll mention as well as put in the description for you. If that happens to be the case and you're not caught up, it would be my recommendation that you don't watch this video any further to stay away from any sort of spoilers. This will be The Big Bang Theory Season 6, Episode 20. The title of this episode is called The Tenure Turbulence. And this will be my review, reaction, recap after just finishing watching the episode. Leonard talks about a jellyfish that never dies. Kripke shows up and tells the guys that a professor died in his office and has been there dead for 2 weeks. That means a new tenure position will be open, a job for life. Leonard talks to Penny about the position over dinner. Sheldon also talks to Amy about it over dinner, and Raj talks to Howard and Bernadette over dinner about the position as well. Sheldon assumes that he'll get it and tells Amy he'll have to deal with a jealous roommate after Leonard finds out he doesn't give it. And we know that Mrs. Davis is on the tenure committee. So Leonard goes to visit Mrs. Davis at the gym. Eventually, Kripke also shows up, and he and Mrs. Davis turn it up a notch as Leonard, who was on the ascent trainer, and he was barely doing anything, but he couldn't keep up with anything that Mrs. Davis was doing and had to stop. And he was like exhausted after barely doing anything because Leonard is not a guy that works out. Raj sends Mrs. Davis, I think what was a YouTube video or some sort of video thing, just about his history and all that. And then Sheldon has arrived at Mrs. Davis's office. He's brought her a gift. He got her roots. She seems annoyed, and Sheldon asks, "You're black, right?" And then she tells him that this meeting is over. And Sheldon tells Amy he won't be able to go to date night as he has to go to a memorial. He's really upset about it. And he tells Amy that she can go to drive him, as that would be most helpful. But he only wants her to drive him. He doesn't really care that Amy's going to be there in support of her man. He just wants a ride. So everyone is there for this memorial. They're outside the memorial, and Penny's got her boobs out and easy access to see to get the people on the committee's attention. Sheldon and Raj get into it with, I did your mom last night and this, and that. And then we see that Kripke goes in to the memorial with Mrs. Davis, and then everybody decides that they're going in too, because they're not going to let Barry Kripke be the one. And then the next day, Sheldon goes to Mrs. Davis's office and says, thanks for recommending him, Raj and Leonard, for the tenure committee. He apologizes for giving Mrs. Davis the gift of roots. And she said, well, with all your quirks, all three of you. And he's like, quirks? What do you mean quirks? And then instead of a gift this time, he puts his hand out to handshake. And Mrs. Davis is like, okay. And then he goes, you know, the weird handshakes that like NBA players and players do in sports, baseball players. Yeah, he did one of those. And Mrs. Davis is like, I'm going to pretend that didn't happen to end this episode of The Big Bang Theory. So, pretty funny stuff here. I liked it. Those interactions between Sheldon and Mrs. Davis are just memorable. Remembering the one that he did, I think it was this season when he said all women are slaves. Freaking hilarious. Giving her the DVD of Roots. Wow. So I'm going to score this episode an 8.8 out of 10. My character of the episode is Sheldon because he's freaking hilarious. The part where he just wanted Amy to give him a ride. Not that she'll be there in support, he just wanted a ride. And then, as many of you know, I rate Penny based on how she looks because, well, that's the reason why I started watching The Big Bang Theory. So in this episode, the boobies were out, that's for sure. I'm going to give Penny a 9.2 out of 10. So you've heard what I have to say. Now it's your turn. If you're a fan of The Big Bang Theory and want to help me out with the YouTube algorithm, make sure that you Hulk smash that like button, and I will wait. Share the video with anybody you know. Put this video on any one of your social media platforms. Don't forget to sound off in the comment section about what your thoughts are on this episode. What would you rate it? Who would be your character of the episode? And if you want to rate Penny or Penny's boobs, whatever you want to do, make sure you do that like I do. And then last but certainly not least, don't forget to hit that sub button. Subscribe to the channel. You're watching the video anyway. Join the team, show your damn support, and be a part of something special. And JDev will return.